Welcome, 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 everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. My name is Pawel the Cat with my wonderful co-host, Evan.
Hey, name's Evan. They call me Rev Renaerts. You guys can follow us at Rev and Ev on X or at hockey_2. Great to be back, Pawel. So we're going in alone. It's just the two of us arguing or debating tonight. As we go through that, we have a lot of things around the NHL. Some things we're going to go around the rink. We got some hockey history. I don't think we got a rant tonight unless you had something planned. So, guys, if all of a sudden in the middle of if one of us gets going, we might just throw the rant up. You never know. It can catch you off guard. So anyway, guys, welcome. So great to have you with us here tonight. Just like to add every Wednesday night right here, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Catch us every week. We go 41 to 43 episodes a year. We take Christmas and New Year's off, and then between the August long weekend in Canada and the September long weekend, between that period of time, we take some time off too. So generally, we only take between 9 to 11 weeks off a year. Otherwise, we're here every week. I think Pawel might have 1 year missed. Well, probably this year will be your most misses. And you started it at the beginning of the year. And I think I've only missed one or two ever. So generally speaking, you got at least 40 episodes with both of us on. So sorry, guys.
You have to put up with us that much, unfortunately. But yeah, cheers to that. I hope you have a beverage wherever you are tuning in. Remember to give us a follow on Facebook as well as on YouTube and on what's it called? And on Twitter/X. Zilstra says Jordan makes me rant. I mean, I know he does. I think getting you two in a what's it called, in a room together, it's like a bull in a china shop. That's what I see it like. But
well, I think Zilstra is a Taurus, so that makes sense.
Well, we got to get into it because there's been a lot of things happening now. We're only a few weeks away from the playoffs. Lots has been happening. Nothing chaotic, but there have been some stories, around the league. And so I wanted to get into it with you. So where did you want to begin, Evan?
Well, I heard that you want to get into it with me, so I feel like it's just like Zilstra's got you fired up. Maybe she wants to fight with Jordan. You want to fight with me? Maybe that's just joking. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we get started a little bit different, and let's get into some numbers. Why don't we go by the numbers tonight and start off there?
You got it. By the numbers.
Puckpedia, the ultimate source for your NHL salary cap information, player contracts, team cap hits, transaction news, and injury news.
By the numbers.
All right, let's get into it.
All right. Why don't we talk about your favorite hero? Zill's on right now. Let's talk about it. Ovechkin.
All right.
Goal count.
He is
goals. How many?
Goal. He is now, I believe, at 889, I believe, and he's 6 away from scoring, tying Gretzky's record. So
with 11 games.
About 11 games left. It's going to be close. It's going to be tight, but it looks like they're right at the deadline. So Washington has made the playoffs. It looks like he could potentially beat it. We've talked about this all season. He got really hot. He was injured for a little bit with a broken leg earlier on in the season.
Otherwise, it would have been a sure thing, probably. Right?
Most likely, but he clearly has figured it out, and I think he's going to do it. I know we've talked about whether he'll do it next season, but even so, even if he does it early next season, I mean, he's close to it, and they're going to try to compete for one more Stanley Cup. But it's an impressive feature with what he's been able to do at his age. I think, what has he scored now? 39, 40 goals this season already? Like man is unstoppable. He is a scoring machine. So,
I think what's really interesting in this case, like I stuck to my guns, even though he was just really lighting it up coming back, that he would be 1 goal short. That's how I started the season with. I'm sticking to my gun. I think he could go either 1 or 2 over, or he could be 1 or 2 under. This is really going to depend on the team, but it is, I'm going to say the law of odds is going to tell us he's going to make it. And the reason, even though I'm still keeping my 1 under, and here's why. He's really kind of slowed down. He's not on fire right now. and he kind of goes in streaks. So with 11, if you figure that out in a 82 game season, that's like 41 goals. Well, that's right in his territory. That's right in his house, right? So all he needs is, a couple games where he scores 2 and another couple games where he just scores 1. That's it.
100%. And I think he's going to do it. I think that's how good he is. And we're going to go back in history one day, maybe in hockey history, and talk about how he was able to do it this season and the success that he had.
Yeah. Perfect, man. All right. Well, hey, talking about another Russian, what about Kucherov?
Oh, incredible. So another 100-point season for the guy. And he continues to just put up numbers quietly. He doesn't get the same recognition as some of the other big stars, the Nathan McKinnons, the Connor McDavids, the Leon Draisaitl's. But this guy continues to put up points, and he stepped up big time, especially after they lost Stamkos in the offseason, and really held up at that leadership role on and off the ice and being able to put up points, given that they needed it from elsewhere, right? And to have 3 100-point seasons in a row, that's an impressive feature. Good for him, and I don't think people are talking enough about him for potentially a Hart nominee. That's how good he is. But your thoughts, Evan, on Nikita?
He seems to be like right there on that Hart nominee every year, doesn't he? Over the last, last 5 years. I mean, the guy is an amazing player. In fact, to end today's show, I don't want to say too much because I want to hold some of that back, and I want to talk about hockey history, and I want to actually talk about Kucherov later today. But let's talk about his coach. So you made a post, guys, follow us on Facebook, like us, follow us. You can get all of our content that's up. So you made a post today about John Cooper.
Yeah. He is now becoming the coach that has achieved, sorry, I'm just looking at my numbers here, that sits at 3rd most wins in franchise history with 566. 600 is second, and Al Arbor, the legendary Al Arbor head coach, was at 740. I mean, what can you say about John Cooper that you haven't? Great Canadian guy. He has done a lot for the game, coached Team Canada this year at 4 Nations, has his Stanley Cups, has the respect of his peers, is the longest serving coach. Like, he's kept that team engaged, competitive, and intense, even after all the changes, all the losses, whether they're depth players or anything else. And
you're a contender again.
You're a contender, and you could potentially win again. And that's how good the team is. So I love what the Tampa Bay Lightning have been able to do. And I think that regardless of course, in the Tampa Bay, organization, he'll go down and be honored. But I think as a coach, he needs to go as one of the builders or potentially as someone who grew the game, because he made a very big impact on the game. But your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty amazing when you got a coach that stayed all with one team. I mean, that's Al Arbor as well, but you're talking Al Arbor had 4 straight Stanley Cups. Yeah. So
that was a dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, but don't forget that you had 3 straight Stanley Cup appearances and all those seasons, plus you had a couple seasons before that. Ever since John Cooper's come in, he's played well. Now, I was not a fan of how he deployed the team at the 4 Nations for Team Canada. I'm not a big fan of some of the players he brought in, but here's the bottom line. They win. They just keep winning, and they keep winning. And so if you're a Leafs fan, you got to be saying, I don't want Toronto and Tampa Bay in the first round again. I don't think Toronto's going to be able to take out Tampa Bay, and that could be another first round exit. And what's going to happen in Toronto? We'll talk about that a little later on. But hats off, man, to John Cooper, guys.
Said Tampa sucks. Tampa sucks.
Oh boy. Okay.
Getting everybody riled up. Yeah, I mean, the team, to me, is very impressive. I thought maybe when they got knocked out by Toronto a couple of years back here that they would have made a coaching change. But who are you going to replace him with? Really? And now he's coming off a win with, of course, not only some of the players he picked for Team Canada to come on to and play depth roles, but he's making the team competitive, and Tampa Bay is going to try to go for another cup. I mean, they have Vasilevsky. How can you not? You have Hedman. How can you not? And Kucherov.
And Getzel has fit perfect in there.
Now, speaking of elite defensemen, it looks like the Washington Capitals have re-signed Jacob Chikrin to 8 years at $9 million. Boom! What a big contract. Now, this was a bit of a shocker for me because we had seen Jacob Chikrin kind of bounce around the league. He was always going to be on the trade block when he was in Arizona. And then he finally moved over to Ottawa. It wasn't a good fit. They had a bad year. And so he finally headed over to Washington, and it's been a perfect fit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's been a great mold, a great chemistry, a great fit. And it looks like with the cap going up, he is getting paid big. Good for him. Well-deserved. I always applaud players who get paid because they deserve it. Now, his underlying numbers aren't the best. He is a top 4 guy, but he needs someone to play with. However, I know he's going to spend a lot of money because he's a big fan of it. He loves to eat his liver, and so he's got enough money now to get liver for not only himself but the whole Washington Capitals staff.
So one of the things that has been nice to see with Chikrin is like he's got it after so many games finally, right? When it comes to playing defense, though. That's one of the reasons Washington was very impressed. He came in, they made a few slight structure. He was already making the changes in Ottawa to some of his game. And when he got over to Washington, you can't tell me John Carlson's not a big part of that. And just the mentoring process. It's kind of like how it soothed out when you brought in Matthias Ekholm and how he just kind of smoothed out some of the little quirks and problems in Evan Bouchard's game, which let's go there, not because he's an Edmonton Oiler, but because the Edmonton Oilers might have a problem now with this contract. So they have Bouchard. Everybody was talking that, 10 million, maybe they can get him under. How are they going to get him under 9? The guy is like a 0.9, 0.85, 0.9 points per game. I guess they're going to use this season, hopefully, to try and get a little bit lower. But if he has another playoff like last year, I mean, I don't think it's going to matter. And this guy, you're buying into his UFA years now, not RFA. So Cale Makar and guys like them, when they signed at 9.3 or something, number one, with what he had done. But also remember that you're buying RFA years are cheaper than buying UF. Like when Cale Makar comes up again, he's getting $15-16 million. I mean, huge numbers, especially with
the definitely be paid more than McKinnon.
So where do you think this lies, and how is Edmonton going to handle this, or what do they do? Because there's no way, or do you think there is a way that they can get him under 10 million?
That would be tough to say. I would say I think it's a little bit north of 10 million. I think he'll come under 11.5 to 12 million. I think if anything, the Edmonton Oilers can front load the contract and or add a lot of bonuses, which of course, depending on how many points he puts up, that could be one of those bonuses. But I really think that he has become that number one power play a merchant there for the Edmonton Oilers. He knows how to move it. Now he's a high risk, high reward kind of player, but the underlying numbers is that when he plays with an elite defensive defenseman like an Ekholm now, like previously Duncan Keith, he is able to move the puck up the ice quickly for Leon and Connor to get going. So I think that they're going to try to get him to work. But I mean, here's the thing, Evan. How many of those players are available in the league right now? And where are you going to get that player for cheaper? That's the problem the Edmonton Oilers are going to have to answer. You can't just go out and get someone like that. You may be able to fill it or patch it up, and nothing against players who may be able to play, like a John Klingberg who's still finding his way. But you want Bouchard there, and for all his defensive lapses, and I know I've seen him, and they can be sometimes egregious. I think he is going to command quite a bit of money. I think he'll be around the 10.5 to 11.5 range for 8 years, given that the cap is going up in the next 3 years. And I think he's going to want to stay there because he's got a good fit, being able to play what he does. And he plays quite a bit too. Like, people don't realize that he plays 20 plus minutes a night, if not more. So it's not like he's, being sheltered from anything. So he goes up also against the highest competition, against the opponent. So I really think that they'll do that. And,
So
and remember, he plays. Go ahead.
do you think that he takes a little bit of a discount? Because I mean, essentially, people are saying Draisaitl signed in that last year, so that, for example, next year when he starts his contract, he coming in on the 14. Could this be where, I mean, he could have got 15 and a half on the market, obviously over 7 years or 8. They could have broken it down somehow. Or, I mean, their talk is even like McDavid's going to do something. So the cap is going up astronomically in the next couple of years here. Do you think that he does something closer to the 10 just to be a little bit more than Nurse and kind of in between and hold this together?
Yeah, and only because Nurse signed a while back. And so, he's already in the middle of his contract. And of course, nobody predicted COVID to happen in terms of how it did and how it impacted the cap salary and earnings for the NHL, amongst other things in the world, right? So I really think they thought maybe it would have gone up. I mean, you see the same thing happening in Toronto with the guys that got paid the big dollars and, people complaining about it. But, I mean, they wanted to get paid, right? They wanted a chunk of that pie. So I really think at the end of the day, Bouchard will get paid to some. I don't think they'll overpay him. I think they'll, maybe include bonuses, maybe more front heavy, more be earlier. It'll be more cash in terms of what the salary is being paid out, not the actual cap hit. And of course, there are people who are much smarter than I am that know how to finagle and do this, capologists. But I think at the end of the day, he will get paid because he can put up quite a bit and can be a point per game guy. He does play with Ekholm. He does play top minutes. Unlike, of course, Jacob Chikrin, who's, he's a top 4, but he's playing with Trevor Van Riemsdyk. See, I'm sounding like you. I can't pronounce names. And he doesn't have to eat that because you've got John Carlson and Rasmus Sandin taking up the bulk of that time, right? Granted, I think Washington has a bit more of good depth on their back end. But, if we look at the numbers for Chikrin this year, in 66 games, he's got 18 goals and 26 assists for 44 points, and he's plus 24. So it shows that he has that offensive touch, but Bouchard is way more than that. So, it may be a little bit of a down year this year. I'd have to take a look at the exact amount, but I believe that, he has an opportunity to really make an impact. And again, being coached by Paul Coffey helps. So in 70 games, he's got 13 goals and 42 assists because he passes the puck to those two guys, that two-headed dragon in Edmonton.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, but I think Edmonton will keep him.
So, okay. So talking about keep him, somebody they didn't keep was Dylan Holloway. Since the Four Nations Cup, Dylan Holloway in 17 games has 20 points, man. He's eating things up. Now, is there regret in Edmonton, or do you think that they're happy because it freed up space and they moved on?
No, they're going to say they moved on, but they are regretting not having a winger. And let's be honest, the whole season in Edmonton, they have tried everything around Draisaitl to have an elite winger who can put the puck in the net. And it's been hard. And no offense to Jeff Skinner or Victor Arvidsson, they have done what they can, but it's not Dylan Holloway. You had a first-round pick who has been elite, showed why he was elite last year in the playoffs. Of course, the offer sheets came. They could have matched it. They had the opportunity when they traded out CC. They got some cap room. They had Evander Kane off for a bit, who's also been unhealthy and hasn't played this season. And I really think that they should have kept him at least. I understand why Broberg didn't stay. He didn't want to be here. He wanted a different opportunity. Things happen like that. But there is a little buyer's remorse. And I think what this move by Doug Armstrong that took place shows that more NHL GMs are going to have brass to take more action and do more offer sheets. And I would expect another one this offseason. Just rumblings that I've heard. That's what I would say.
That would be an interesting twist. And speaking of St. Louis now, in St. Louis, Pat Maroon, the big rig, as he was known for a certain portion of his career, who did get to ride shotgun for a little while in the early career with Connor McDavid. 3 cups. The guy, after 18 years, if you count a few games in his first season with Anaheim, he is now hanging them up and retiring to spend more time with his family. What's your thoughts on Pat Maroon as he goes out and finishes this season?
Well, I'll share a little story. So Jordan and I got to meet Pat Maroon here in Edmonton one night at the hotel, JW Marriott. Big man. His hands were huge, the size of my body. That's how big he was. The man was intense, very friendly, very kind, very open. What can you say? The guy turned his career around. He took an opportunity. He made the most of it. He was a last-minute addition from Anaheim to Edmonton from Anaheim in that trade deadline a couple years ago. Fit in well, had quite a good season with Connor McDavid feeding him the puck, put up quite a bit of points. Moves over to St. Louis, where he's from, wins that cup the first time ever in that history of that franchise, moves over to Tampa Bay, wins 2 more, goes around the league, plays with now Connor Bedard, this young stud that's going to be in the league. I think he's done well for himself. He's always been a bit of a goon, but he can't put the puck in the net. His skating has dropped off in the last little bit, but of course, he's a big man. I would not want to cross him, to be honest with you. But I have enjoyed watching Pat Maroon on the ice because he is the big rig, and you do not want to get in the way of a big rig. You will not. You will not survive that. Hey, Kyle, good to see you.
That's crazy. It's the big rig plays heavy hockey per se. Okay, guys, we have a lot of by the numbers in our segment here, a little bit different than normal. But speaking of playing heavy hockey with the big rig, heavyhockey.com. If you guys go over there, you can follow them at Heavy Hockey. They did some numbers. I was following them on X. For some of you also refer to it as Twitter. And so one of their posts, they actually came up, and you can read it in their little article. They came up with a 3-2-1 system. So what happens is if you go to overtime, so you get 1 point, okay, for going to overtime. If you go to overtime and get a win, you get 2 points. But if it's a regulation win, you get 3 points. So it's like your double IHF, right? Like your international tournaments. So they did the system. And so I started reading through it because they said you'd find it interesting. As I started going through it, I was kind of taken off guard because essentially the Western Conference, not a single thing changes for the placement for your top 3. And yes, there was one. Vancouver and Calgary were flipped. That was it. Mm-hmm. Everything else based on a 3-2-1. But you're talking about 137 points right now already at this point in time coming through. So that's interesting. It's just like most people who do the playoff format with 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. It doesn't often change up that much as people think of it. What would be yours? Would you be a guy that would be open to going to a 3-2-1 system in the future?
Oh, 100%. I think anything to sometimes change it up would be better. I know they talked about at the GM meeting, even having the 10-minute overtime. Would that be something that they would consider? If it's something that grows the game and doesn't slow it down and continues it and makes it end faster, I'm all for it. The biggest thing is, again, does it really matter as much right now in the regular season versus in the playoffs? Because, in the playoffs, in the postseason, it's just 5-on-5 until someone wins, right? So are you trying to implement it just for the regular season for a reason? And how does this impact the TV deals in terms of your partnerships there? How does this impact gate revenue in terms of keeping your buildings open and, fans being in attendance, and for how long? I remember fans being at some of the games where in overtime, it went to like 4 or 5 overtimes in the postseason. And you would think to those fans, like, I think there was one game with Colorado. I forget who the opponent was. And they went to 5 overtimes. It was getting close to like 1 or 2 a.m. in Denver. And people were just getting so tired. You could see people just sleeping in their seats because they were just so exhausted. So if it's a way to grow the game and it's an improvement on what we have now, as they say, quote unquote, loser points. It helps. It makes the race much funner. Do you really want more of a gap, or do you like that race for the postseason? That's something I would ask you and everyone tuning in.
Well, okay. So, you guys go ahead, put your mentions in there. We have 3 more theses we're going to talk about by the numbers before we move out. We'll cover a couple things with some sponsors, I'll remind you some things in our show, and then we're going to go around the rink. But before we do that, just talking about numbers again, let's move over a little bit because we're talking about playoff race and how would it be affected. So interesting. I see that the Avalanche, I don't know if you're an Avalanche fan, if you're excited, but you guys got a rabbit's foot that you've been holding on to. You didn't have that rabbit's foot to start the year. Your rabbit's foot was suspended. So you eventually got it out of suspension, got it out of jail, and then you were able to bring it back. And that rabbit's foot is Valery Nichushkin. So he's in your lineup. And with him in the Avs lineup, you guys get this. You have 26 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. So literally, Pavel, the Avs' fate, these playoffs, are wrapped up in the hands of Valery Nichushkin. Should he not, okay, should he not be available for a game, it's a certain loss. Who do you make his babysitter to ensure that he stays in his hotel room when he's away, or make sure he goes home at night in Colorado during the playoffs?
His name is 29, Mr. Nathan McKinnon. That's who keeps him in line. Nathan McKinnon runs a tight ship, and with, of course, Landeskog, although he's been skating with the team and most likely will skate with their AHL affiliate, I think Nathan McKinnon is going to have a big hard talk. Granted, you're an adult. You know what's going on. You know what's on the line. You don't want to let your team down. You want to make sure you're making an impact on the ice and being effective and putting the puck in the net. That's what you brought in for. That's why you had that big contract signed. The organization believed in you. The GM believed in you. Joe Sakic believed in you. Your teammates believe in you. Show it. Show it with another Stanley Cup for the Colorado Avalanche franchise, because that's what's on the line. And I think that if something happens again, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we talked about his suspension and his NHL players safety assistance program that he entered, this is pretty much the last time, right? I don't know if he's going to be able to play after this. I don't know if that would be allowed, but I don't see how Colorado, if something were to happen, heaven forbid, would allow or accept him to come back for a little bit more for whatever the remainder of that contract would be.
Yeah,
I think they get the NHLPA involved and terminate that contract.
Yeah, it is going to be a close watch, I think, over this next season. I think they're going to be good right now. I mean, he knows what's on the line and stuff. It seems like he has done well in his recovery. So you know what? Let's keep your hands together, keep your fingers crossed, put your hands together, start praying if you're an Avs fan. But just for him as a human being, right? Everyone goes through something at different periods of time. So,
100%.
All right, let's move over. Let's move over.
Before we get,
before we
get to that, I just wanted to talk about John Tavares. So we know that he doesn't get as much.
That's what I was going to talk about.
Okay,
what fortune?
Okay, go ahead.
No, go for it, man. Let's talk about John. You cover John, and I'll cover Crosby.
We know that John's coming into the final year of that contract that he signed when he first chose to go from the island to Toronto. I know San Jose made a pitch for him years ago, potentially to sign him even for a higher amount. I believe they were presenting him with $13 million to bring him in as their number one center. Now, John has performed incredibly for the team, right? Like, he has continued to perform and make an impact, right? This season, Evan, at his age of 34, right? And he's a little slower. You could see it on the ice. But in 64 games, he's got 32 goals, 33 assists for 65 points. That's not nothing. The guy continues to perform. He was a number one draft pick. He continues to play it. Now, of course, he's overshadowed often with Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, the change of the captaincy, things of that nature. But the guy continues to perform, and I know that there's a deal to be made there with the Toronto organization and him for the upcoming season. What does that look like? I mean, you guys can speculate. I'm sure Hans, who's a big Toronto fan, would love to have him at cheap. I'm seeing the Anze Kopitar deal, 3 to 4 years at 6.5 to 7.58 million, given that the cap's going up. Because he has fit in very well and he has good chemistry, not only with Willie Nylander, but he has served excellent as a second line center, although not always effective. He can also play on the wing and as your third line center, which Max Domi was supposed to be. It hasn't been as successful. So John continues to be good. And really he can continue to perform. And even if you're getting next year 50 points out of him, that's a good deal. So Zylstra says, leave, so let Tavares walk. I don't know. Maybe. I think he's going to stay there and retire a guy. He already gave up the C, and that's a hard thing to do. I think he's going to do what's best. Again, you got to also remember these guys have families. They have roots. They're established.
I
It's
see
gonna
him
be hard
sign.
for him to go anywhere
I,
else.
I see like an 8x3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyone thinking 5 and under, guys, you're dreaming. You know what you get for 5? Go take a look out there. You get nothing. The guy produces your goals. He produces on the face-offs. He wins a lot of your face-offs. His foot speed is really the only thing you need to be concerned about over the next 3 years. And right now, he finds other ways to like. I mean, he kept the Toronto Maple Leafs around still during the time when Matthews was injured too, right? So don't forget that. Well, having said that, we're talking about guys that have come back, and Crosby, of all guys. Now we know he signed that extension, but Crosby now, he is 1 point away. Now I don't think they're playing tonight, but he is 1 point away, and he will be a point per game player or better for an unprecedented 20th time. Guys, 20th time. He has 3 Stanley Cups, 6 gold medals. I mean, the list goes on for his club and his country. This guy, I don't care who you are. There is no way you can't put him in your Mount Rushmore of top 5 iconic. What he has produced, his leadership, everything along the line. Talk to any player that has ever played, including some of the best, and they will put him right in there. I know that some people like to think that, you know, if you love, say, the Oilers, there's guys that you would put in there like Messier. I'm sorry, the guy doesn't come close to what Crosby was. I love Mess the Moose. He provided a whole different game. But this guy at this age and that consistent, and what people don't get is his faceoffs were terrible his first year. In his second year, Yannick Perreault, I remember Yannick Perreault came in the same year. He was drafted as Eric Lindros. I saw him in the prospects game. He had a wonderful prospects game. I had higher hopes, but the guy was a face-off ace, just like Manny Malhotra. And he came in and he's asking him, he's like, well, in the middle of a game, Crosby's asking him, how do you win those face-offs? How do you do that? Like, he's a kid, right? Sid the Kid. And what's crazy is he still kind of looks like a kid if he just shaved. I mean, it's crazy. So he still is known many as Sid the Kid. But anyway, guys, that is pretty much it right now for Around the Rink. And do you want to comment on something? Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add, I think when you're looking at the most complete player, and this is even a survey they do every year, by players in the league, they always come up unanimously or close to a higher percent that Sidney Crosby is the most complete player in the game. That shows a lot. I've
never said this before, and I'm just thinking on air. I think Sidney Crosby is probably the most complete player of all time. When you say complete player, that's every aspect. Like, if you took every aspect that you would break a forward player, that is right, or even a center, and you put those down, he rates in the top all the way through. Like, even guys like Lemieux, there was much missing. Gretzky, much missing. Or there was things missing from some of their games. Even Gordie Howe, right? But I mean, yeah. It's I can't imagine what would happen in Crosby's career if he hadn't got injured with that hit by David Steckel. Steckel, or I should. But go ahead, correct me. You always like to correct me.
No. I think you said it right. Yeah.
Is it Stickle or Steckel? I don't know. This is a Stickle thing.
Sometimes it can change so often depending on who you talk to. But yeah, if David's listening, feel free to let us know.
All right, guys, that's it for hockey history.
The Kalkaska Battlers presents
Hockey history.
Catch the Kalkaska Battlers as they compete in the APHL. Check the skills, speed, heart. Make sure you catch a game and experience the thrill of live hockey. Go Battlers!
All right, Pavel, why don't you give everybody a quick say so that those that are just jumping in midstream?
We are here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on X/Twitter. We've also got a website at twoguysinhockeytalk.ca where we have previous guests listed, regular ongoing articles up from all around the league, as well as all of our platforms and where you can connect with us if you want to talk all things hockey. These are our partners. We appreciate all of them. If you are looking to partner with us, feel free to reach out to us. We are always looking to expand our brand, and we love having you on here, promoting you guys, and talking all things hockey, right? But I know we wanted to get to a few things around the rink because there's quite a bit going on, right?
Let's do it.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
Now, Evan, you've come on the show several times and talked about how your fandom has changed. You loved the Calgary Flames when you were growing up. You loved other teams, and you have followed quite a bit. And now you love almost everything, although you are based in Edmonton. But did you choose your favorite hockey team, or did you have to take on what your parents or someone important in your life decided that this is the team you need to cheer for, and you're stuck with it? Because many people grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada, and that was often their team, and rarely did you get a chance to say it.
Yeah.
But let me know.
Yeah. So I'd like to get everybody, if you're a fan, by the way, right now, whether you're delayed watching this in a rerun or if you're watching right now live, guys, send us your feedback. I grew up, my first team I started watching, I saw them first in 1979, and my grandfather had the TV on. He was not really a hockey fan, but it was the Vancouver Canucks because I lived in British Columbia. And by 1980, we were over at a friend's place and I saw them again. And then the next thing you know, in 81, they're running, I think it was 81, is when they started going to the Cup with King Richard Brodeur. And I became sold. So me and my friend, we started and stayed up late nights while our parents were working late. We stayed at a place called the Tudor House in a hotel where we were all living out of a hotel place. We were so angry when Mike Bossy scored the winning goal in one of those games, and he kept scoring, and they were just lighting us up. And Brian Trottier, Billy Smith was hacking and whacking with Tiger Williams, and my friend Vince Ballandine is actually spitting gobs of spit on the black and white TV in our room, like just spitting on, oh, I hate you. I think we were 11 years old at the time. That was why for me, because my dad was not a hockey fan per se. Now, I changed that allegiance though. A few years later, when I moved over to, I had Guy hockey cards, by the way. That's kind of how this all started though too. And so I had saw all these Oilers and other people, but I didn't connect. So when I moved to Calgary, I went and took a visit to the Saddle Dome. And when I went through the tour, I really fell in love with this amazing arena and the way it was designed and stuff back in the day when it was brand new. And so I just started making a change. So that's how that happened. But I like goalies, and I was listening and watching all the stats of Pelle Lindbergh. So I was a Philly fan. Then, of course, the Flyers are playing. And at the same time, the Canada in 1987, I really came out with Mary Lemieux in the Canada Cup and realized how much I love the Penguins. But I still was a Flames fan until I met my wife in 89, and she made me move to Edmonton. And then I became an Oilers fan. So I really moved around. For me, it wasn't about my parents, but a lot of my friends, Montreal Canadiens or Toronto Maple Leafs, essentially. Yeah, how about you?
I came over from Europe when I was very little, and I got my first exposure to hockey when I saw the Edmonton Oilers play, and this was the 90s team.
Sorry.
That's okay. And so the way it was that I was able to kind of watch this fast-paced, intense game. And some of the players that I remember growing up watching were the Jason Arnotts, were the Doug Waits, and of course my favorite player of all time, and I have no shame of saying it, is Ryan Smith. Just the way he went to the net, he was able to kind of battle, what you see normally Hyman do, but the beatings that Ryan Smith took back in the day, I mean, he was intense. And then playing for Team Canada, being Captain Canada, that was impressive. And so watching those players play. Now, I started exploring later on all the other teams, and I had grown up mostly watching the Oilers play. But I started watching the Philadelphia Flyers, and as Jamie Basco knows, who's a beat writer there, I started watching some previous highlights of John LeClair and Eric Lindros. And the way those guys moved, and even Ron
The
Hextall
Legion
was
of
on that
Doom.
team.
Yeah.
The Legion of Doom, just like, it wowed me. What was I watching? It was magic. You know, they call it Miracle on Ice. I call it Magic on Ice, because these guys performed beautifully. And so I had a second love and a second home with the Philadelphia organization. And that is why to this day, those are the two teams that I follow. At least I have one in the East and one in the West. And if they ever were to come together in a playoff final, like they did back in the day prior to me living in this world, oh, would that be a spectacle? I wouldn't know who to cheer for. I think I pull all my hair out. I think I look like you.
Oh
But
man,
you
so leave your comments. Let us know. We're really curious how you went about getting your start. Did it come from a parent? Did you have an experience? How did you go about getting into hockey and following your specific team around it?
Now, before we get to that, to the next thing, I know that to get to the NHL, there's a bit of a trek. And you wanted to discuss Western Michigan University because they recently won something. And I wanted you to kind of follow up on what's been going on there.
Yeah, so very interesting this year. The Western Michigan University in the NCHC, there's the two. So there's the Frozen Four and then their regular season trophy. They won both hockey trophies this year. This is the first in history. So this is an amazing feat. Western Michigan doesn't win that often. So this is a really big deal. This isn't the Wolverines. So with that, I think that I don't know if this is going to happen again. Excuse me. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that the NCAA is about to get a lot more competition with all of the Canadian Hockey League players out of Major Junior now being able to go over there. So if you get a chance to check out, by the way, go just like you watch football and basketball and check out the fandom when it comes to even in hockey. Of course, your numbers are going to be a lot less because they don't have as large arenas. But man, they're packed and they have a great time. Even the teams that are losing, they do well. So yeah, you gotta go ahead, check out if you haven't followed them. You can also check out some of their highlights. You can probably go onto your YouTube, I'm sure, and be able to check out Western Michigan University. You'll love it, guys.
Now, when you jump over to Russia, there's been some stories coming out of the KHL with the SKA St. Petersburg with the coach. Did you want to get into what's been going on there?
Okay, so with SKA St. Petersburg, everyone knows Rottenberg. Sorry, he's the guy that has benched Demidov. He's dealt with some other players in the past. He likes his veterans. He sits the young guys, especially if they're not going to be staying in the KHL. Now here's the thing. He is also I forget exactly some of the terminologies. So like he's like basically like an assistant president. He has a whole bunch of roles. But right now, if they don't get, it's being rumored that if they don't get to the third round, okay, guys, he is going to lose his job. The Gagarin, so it's called the Gagarin Cup. And their playoffs, I'm not sure if they quite started or they're about to start right now. But yeah, so this is going to be an interesting one because they're not a very good team. And I know Demidov, there was talk that they might even send him down. They might not let him play with this. I say let the guy play, take advantage. But maybe he now lets the guy play because he wants to win some games. I don't know. There's weird stuff that happens over there, man. Just weird stuff.
100%. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on there, especially given the value of Demidov and what he brings to the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I know that there's been some recent reporting with the NCAA, Isaac Howard. Did you want to kind of touch on that?
Yeah, so I should have mentioned that during the NCAA. So, guys, Isaac Howard, I think he's fourth in scoring this year. He had an incredible year. He's 20 years old. He is a prospect of the Tampa Bay Lightning, talking about Tampa Bay and where they're going in their future. He is unsigned right now, so I'm not sure the signing times or how long before it's given up. But after this great season, he has really developed into that great player. So watch for potential signing of Isaac Howard if you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan. And if not, get ready for free agency because somebody's going to pick him up, and it won't be that long. Again, he finished, I believe, 4th overall this last year in NCAA.
And we know there's been movement along in a lot of the junior leagues here in Canada. And there was a BCHL response to the Penticton V's WA transfer. What can you share about that?
Yeah, so this one has been quite interesting. So the BCHL has acknowledged that the Penticton V's had acquired a Western Hockey League expansion, right? And the city of Chilliwack has been identified as a WHL expansion location. So I didn't know that. I know Chilliwack had been talked about, but now they actually came out and said that they've been told that as well, because Chilliwack could lose their BCHL team as well. So V's ownership is going to retain its membership. This is what's interesting. The V's ownership, because it's the same owners. This is what's weird. They're going to retain its membership in the BCHL, but they will look to relocate in the near future, while the Chiefs organization, who had no involvement in the city's WHL expansion process, remains committed to the BCHL. So Chilliwack is still in there, and they've already formally indicated they're playing in 25-26, and even beyond that, they've said that they have a commitment. The BCHL put a statement out. They say they remain committed to advancing its position as one of the world's premier college tracking junior hockey leagues. This comes from Rich Murphy, chairman of the BCHL Board of Governors. And he even says, watch this, we thank the V's organization for their contributions to the league. We look forward to continuing to work with them as they move forward with their relocation. In addition, we are pleased to have the Chiefs organization in the BCHL next season and beyond. And then it says our focus remains firmly on the future, one that's filled with opportunities for growth and league unity, while continuing our commitment to developing elite student athletes. The BCHL continues to evolve as junior hockey undergoes significant changes, but its foundation remains, and of course they go on a little bit more, right? And so they said, as a member of the BCHL, there will be no interruption to the V's current season. Can I just say this now? Hello, AJHL and Hockey Canada and the works, who actually pulled the plug out when they heard teams were leaving mid-season. That's not a good way to go into the playoffs for the V's, to have this expansion thing mentioned right away. It's good for the town itself, maybe, but not for the league, right? Especially when it had over 50 players that got pulled away from throughout the Canadian Hockey League. So as far as I'm concerned, I know people were mad. They said, oh, the BCHL picked up players. They stole them. Folks, they continue to always be more classy than the other person. I don't care what you say. Show me something different.
Yeah. Fair enough. It's it's always such a complex issue. So, there's a lot of moving parts. And there's no easy way to transition into this, but the final kind of thing that was kind of reported by Rick Westhead, of course, as people may know, who's broken many stories, is that 2 ex-major junior players are now heading to jail after losing their appeal in a sentence, where 2 former Victoriaville Tigers players had been charged. And it looks like they have till a certain day to report, because they have been sentenced. Okay, today. To both 30 and 32 months for their actions. You guys can go follow up Rick Westhead for the reporting. He does some excellent work there. Any thoughts there?
No, just it's a sad day and a happy day. I think for the victim that something got done here and this got reported. This person came out a lot later than some of the others, but there was enough evidence to be able to move a lot quicker on this one, right?
I think they have to shift hockey culture to some extent, or some of these behaviors by these certain men apples and the people that maybe turn a blind eye, because we don't need this in hockey. The game is already great.
You know what I always wonder about, because a lot of this seems to be when players are alone. Like obviously if they're away from the team, like on their own as just friends in the community back in their own city. But I feel like when they're on the road, there always should be a chaperone. You can't go anywhere without a chaperone. I get it. The 19 and 20-year-olds could be different, but hey, you're around a lot of 17, 18-year-olds. So I mean, this could go the other way. You could have, a player even abusing another young player on the team, or bullying, harassing. I think when you're dealing with junior, I think that there should just be chaperones and just keep it in place. When you're on the road, when you're traveling, you got to find some other ways to protect. People are bad, just inherently. So we have to find a way to be able to set things in place. It's a
And
different world.
guys, 100%. And guys, you have to understand that we don't know all the details. That's between the courts, the lawyers, and even the individuals involved in that exact moment of what exactly happened. So we are only basing it on what has been reported and what has been instigated. And certainly the argument that, they were young, they deserve a second chance for sure. There's always that opportunity for essentially reintegration into society. It's just we don't want to see as much of it. We want to be reporting NHL news, not that.
Yeah.
So,
hey, before we wrap up, just a quick note. So BCHL, I got the same number saying they didn't make the playoffs this year, guys. They got a new arena they're going into for next year. The WHL, I got some jerseys, the Wenatchee Wild, the Red Deer Rebels, and the WHL. So right now, we're ready. The OHL across this Friday. Playoffs start. So if you want to get some good hockey, Sportsnet's going to be picking up some. Go to chl.ca. You can pick up their live, whether it's WHL live, some of the different stuff. Guys, it's great, especially when you hit the playoffs. It's going to be great.
100%.
And I'm looking forward to seeing how Landon DuPont does in Everett. And I'm looking forward on the future watch to see how Gavin McKenna does with the Medicine Hat Tigers. And then also Berkeley Catton down in Spokane. And then over in the Ontario League, I'm looking forward to seeing what Michael Misa, Porter Martone, and Liam Greentree, what he's going to be able to do these, because he's been lightening it up. So, but that's it.
This has been.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right, guys, we're close to the end of the show, but we have a few more things to get through, including hockey history. So we want to get into a little bit of NHL news that's been going on in the last little bit. So we know that both the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets have clinched their season to the postseason. So we'll see what happens there. And more teams are starting to clinch. So we're going to start seeing what it is. But one of the storylines potentially emerging is that the Edmonton Oilers may face the LA Kings again for a fourth year. Evan, your quick thoughts on this, given that even if we had the different format, the 1-8, you'd still potentially see. I don't know if it was today or a couple days ago, it would have been the same where Edmonton still faces versus LA, right? There'd only be a few minor changes. So your thoughts on this fourth rematch?
I absolutely love this. This is what rivalry is all about. This is, the hatred, the anger, the rough stuff that's going to get ready, Edmonton fans, because McDavid is going to get clutched and grabbed. They're going to cross-check him from behind. Kings fans, he's going to get sick of it. He's going to hack and slash. He might even cross-check you in the face. You're going to have Bouchard giving pucks away. You're going to have Cam Talbot or whoever letting in another goal that you're saying, that's an awful one. You're going to be mad in Edmonton because Stuart Skinner didn't stop the puck that you thought he should stop. This is playoff hockey when they try to have no mistakes. So everyone's going to play a tight game, and you're going to be so angry at the refs. You just get ready. Not only has it come out of the general meetings that it's gone down, but they're saying people are just getting better. Well, I think these playoffs, you're looking at less penalty power plays than you even had last year. That's my prediction.
Well, it'll be fun to see. Zilstra says it needs to be 1-16 like the original original lyrics were.
I think that wasn't lyrics. I know that was probably an error.
Oh, okay.
Like the original 6 were.
Oh, okay. And I want to get into
not 6, 16. Original 6. Yeah, you can't have 1-16 original 6.
That's okay. It all happens. But there was a recent game where Boston faced off versus LA, and unfortunately for everyone in the hockey world, we got disappointed because there was about to be a goalie fight, Evan. It was going to be Darcy Kemper versus Jeremy Swayman. They were going at it, and the refs interrupted. Now, it was a wild blowout. I believe it was 7-2 for LA versus Boston. We know Boston's going into a rebuild. LA's competing to try to get home ice advantage because they've had a good record at home. But give the people what they want. Let's see a goalie fight. What is it with these refs getting involved? This is silly, right? Like, You want to see that drama. You want to see that action. You want to see that intensity, and nothing better. Nothing gets people going on X/Twitter and online on social media like a goalie fight. Right.
Okay, so do you want to watch it, or do you actually just want to get people riled up about it?
Both. That's the closest you're going to get to a rant tonight, but that's what I would want to see. Now, speaking of LA, and I know we're getting into it because LA fans, wherever you're tuning in from, we love you guys. We love your jerseys. I have a jersey. I have the Laker colored jerseys, but you wanted to talk about Kuzmenko, who's kind of bounced around the league a little bit this season, but finally ends up in LA after a trade with the Philadelphia Flyers. And it looks like Kings fans should be happy with him. Now, he's kind of streaky when it comes to putting up points, but he's going on the rink for a bit where he needs a permanent home. And I think LA would be a great fit because they need scoring. They do have scoring by committee, but really you need more. And especially if you're going up against Edmonton in the first round, and then if you continue on, whether it's Vegas or whoever in the second round, you need guys like Kuzmenko to put up points, especially if he's playing on your third line. Your thoughts on Kuzmenko and what he brings to the LA Kings?
Well, first of all, I get gifted a jersey of the Canucks Kuzmenko. Then he's gone to Calgary. Then he's gone to Philly. Now he's gone to LA. I'm not going to keep up with Kuzmenko jerseys. That's definitely one thing. I feel like he's got a little bit of a bad run. He started really well. In fact, his agent, he almost signed in Edmonton. For some that don't know about that, they just offered more, and they were willing to take more of a chance and guarantee him a spot over in Vancouver because of. But they were looking at him as a running mate for either McDavid or Draisaitl originally, but just felt he would be a third line, not a second. So interesting enough, so this last goal he just got in LA, man, you Kings fans love this guy because you love a good celly, right? A good celebration, which you got to admit, Russians are pretty vocal and pretty fun. Think of Kucherov after winning the cup, right? Go back to Yakupov scoring in the overtime, right? The celly right down. I mean, people hated him for it. It's just like, I'm cool. Enjoy yourself. Ride like Tiger Williams, man, back in the 80s. Ride on like you're riding a truck or something like that. Do whatever. Ovechkin, remember? It was like his stick was hot and his celebrations. I love it. I think it adds a personality to the game, and LA fans are falling in love with Kuzmenko, and I actually really hope that this can become his permanent home.
I agree. And speaking of players with new scenery, Dylan Cousins has really fit in well with the Ottawa Senators. Now, they're still in a playoff spot. It looks like Ottawa's finally going to break the streak. But he's come in from Buffalo, where he's had an okay season in 61 games. He had 11 goals and 20 assists, but he was minus 13. But he's come in, and in the first 9 games, he's got 3 goals and 5 assists, so 8 points, so almost a point-per-game guy. For Ottawa, being able to fill that second line center position. Evan, what does he mean to this team, and what has he been able to do to bring that turnaround, and why should Buffalo fans worry?
Well, it is interesting. It's almost like he felt rejected. It's like he felt he didn't belong. There was just some injection of excitement, and I think a lot of Cousins' game is built off of emotion. I've actually talked to a couple players that used to play with him, and that's a couple of things that they said. In fact, someone who is a former player that knows his family and just said this guy from a young age, he always rides off of the excitement and the emotion of the game. And it's like Buffalo just didn't offer that for whatever the reasons were. So he started, it was an exciting opening, but it just like, it was affecting him, and he emotionally, he had to get his brain back in psychologically. And I don't care how many people say you got to be professional. It's not that simple. So I think going there, I mean, think of the players. You got Brady, you got Stutzel. I mean, you got some incredible players that are lining up there.
Right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned them. Yeah, and you just mentioned Brady Tkachuk. How does he play, Evan? He plays on the line. He plays with emotion. Brady talked about his experience at the Four Nations and just how excited he was. And Ottawa fans, he is a dime in a dozen. The guy can do a lot. And him and Dylan Cousins, they're going to be a threat. And I don't envy. I'm not saying that they're going to win the cup this year, but I don't envy anyone facing the Ottawa Senators in the first round because they're going to give it all they got. Right.
And that could be a potential upset, no matter who they are, even Florida. So I'm just looking quickly right now. The Ottawa Senators, 9 games, three goals, 5. He's got 8 points in that, and he's
I just said earlier.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I must have been listening to the ice puck hitting in the background there. So
no, that's
guys.
good.
It's been a long show. Maybe that might be it. So hey, let me just go over and talk about Shane Wright for a moment before we do a wrap. And so I think I just think people need to lay off of Shane Wright. I don't think you recognize this year 40. He has 40 points in 69 games, and he's played 3 less games than Matt Beniers. Matt Beniers was Rookie of the Year, right? This is his he's 4 years in, and he's got the same amount and played 3 more games and has the exact same amount of goals. He stands tied for second with most goals at 17 with everyone else. He's only come on, his first 12-15 games weren't that great as far as point production. He he's a positive when everyone else seems to be a negative. He's a +3. He's playing a 200-foot game right now. Shane Wright is finding his place. I predict next year you're talking about a top 2 forward on that team. I was worried he might get traded. They might give up early. Ron Francis has done a good job. And actually, I think they're going to be pretty happy that they decided to hang on to Shane Wright.
100%. And I don't think it's their year, but he's continued to perform. His time with Coachella Valley really helped. And we know that I think that with time, he'll be able to find a place in that top 6 and perform. So good on Shane Wright. I know Seattle has some big questions moving forward, but it'll be interesting. And before we finish off with your hockey history story, because I know you have a good one, let's talk about the Calder race, because you love talking about prospects, and you've got a bit of a good race. You've got Macklin Celebrini, the first overall pick, Dustin Wolf, who is single-handedly saving the season for the Calgary Flames and keeping them in the hunt, and you've got Lane Hudson, who came out of nowhere and has helped Montreal also be very, very effective. Also in a wild card spot, I believe, as of the last time I checked. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Amongst a few others, Michkov has played very well. It's a race, Evan, this year. There's no clear winner. Your thoughts on who potentially could run away with this? Is it Celebrini? Is it Hudson? Is it Dustin Wolf? Who would you vote for if you had a chance to vote?
Well, I think, first of all, we got to look at the goals against average. Everyone's talking about how if you have a 905, that's actually really good right now, or a 910. Very seldom anyone's over a 910. I've always said you got to be like a 906 or 908 to actually be up there. However, now it seems to become lower, like to be an okay goalie. This year, 43, I'm just pulled it up here on Elite Prospects. 43 games, he's letting in 2.64 goals per game, which is not a bad number at all. Last year, in his 17 stints, it was at 316. So he was barely just under 9. 9-11. That means he's stopping 91.1% of every puck at him. Remember, he doesn't have a lot of scoring. He's probably single-handedly won them anywhere from 7 to 8 games on his own in games at this rate. And so give him another, 3-4 games, playing 46 to 47 games, essentially in only your second year, and you only played 17. He is sitting only at about less than a full season into his career, and he's looking awesome. If they make the playoffs, my prediction, they make the playoffs, he wins the Calder. If he doesn't, I think it's going to come down then to Lane Hudson, because how do you deny him playing back on defense? The guy's almost a point per game, right?
Yeah.
You know, well, not quite.
In 70 games, 5 goals and 49 assists, so 54 points.
But he is playing on a good team. Montreal is going to probably make the playoffs here. And then you got Macklin Celebrini, who comes in and everything. Number 1 center, plays the toughest competition you can potentially play. And he's lighting it up. He's having a better season even than Connor Bedard did. I mean, and so as a 200-foot game, he's doing so well. I would say my prediction is Macklin Celebrini will win this unless Lane Hudson can go out in these last whatever number of games and just continue to rock it, and Macklin just kind of maybe drops a bit. Or I think it's up to Dustin to win it if he can continue to keep some wins and keep that save percentage 9-10 or above and make the playoffs.
If Calgary makes it, yeah, I know they're kind of still competing, and most likely St. Louis will make that spot. And I know Utah's still chugging along. Vancouver's there kind of in the background. And so we'll see what happens. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You guys can let us know who you believe the Calder, because I never expected this. And we didn't even mention Michkov, and I know Philly hasn't been doing well, but I mean, he's come out flying as well, having that extra year overseas. So it'll be interesting to see, and we'll go for that. Now, we're going to finish off with a little hockey history.
The Kalkaska Battlers presents
Hockey History.
Catch the Kalkaska Battlers as they compete in the APHL. Check the skills, speed, heart. Make sure you catch a game and experience the thrill of live hockey. Go Battlers!
Woo! You gotta love semi-pro hockey, guys. You just gotta love it. Go check out the Kalkaska Battlers. Check them out on YouTube. It would be your best place to be able to follow if you're not in Michigan, and if you're close, you got to go take a peek at what that team is doing. I want to talk and go back in hockey history today. We started off talking in the show about Nikita Kucherov. Okay. So in talking about this guy, I'm just going to pull myself over so you guys can hear my story here. So I want you guys to get this. This guy is the type of player that you would not normally think of as a player that you would look up to. And the reason is because when you look at an all-star game, when you look at those types of things, you're like, oh, this guy doesn't give effort. He doesn't do anything. Can I just talk about his brilliance on the ice? Because we know it's well documented. But I think some of the most revealing stories are about him behind the scenes. It highlights this guy's intense dedication, and it talks about his hockey IQ. In fact, it's been pieced together. I grabbed from various sources to be able to find some of this information. I had heard about some of it. And so as I started pulling up, and I talked to one other former player that actually is connected over there, is now working in the background of some management and scouting. And so he actually says that there is a reoccurring theme in Tampa Bay among Kucherov's teammates. He has an obsessive focus on improvement. That's why this whole All-Star game, he's like some of you. You don't like the All-Star game, and you're upset at him at the All-Star game. He's like, it's not a big deal. Don't get upset about it. But his own game on the ice, he's obsessive about his improvement. And he's always, in fact, one of the situations during, if you guys remember, when they won the cup during COVID, coming out of that, and while they were partying, all he was doing is focusing in on how the following season, what he was going to do to prepare all throughout the offseason. He's preparing. And so that's what he's constantly talking to his teammates about how he can improve his play. And coaches and players alike just all marvel at his exceptional hockey IQ and this guy's ability to just see plays develop. And you can see it. I mean, he's in the running every year. And he is not a selfish player. I can tell you that he is not one of those players that are normally in there. But anyway, guys, that's Nikita Kucherov, and this is hockey history.
The Kalkaska Battlers presents
Hockey History.
Catch the Kalkaska Battlers as they compete in the APHL. Check the skills, speed, heart. Make sure you catch a game and experience the thrill of live hockey. Go Battlers!
Well, that's it for tonight's show. That was hockey history. We appreciate you guys all tuning in and chiming in, sharing your thoughts, listening wherever you are. We are here every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are on YouTube, Facebook, X or Twitter, Instagram, and we've got a website where we have ongoing articles. Guys, remember to email us. Let us know. Let's talk hockey. If you want to connect and partner with us, we'd love to do that. Share our content, like our content. You guys, we wouldn't be doing this without you. Every week, you guys tune in for the latest and the greatest. You guys make this the best time ever. So
Awesome.
wherever you are tonight or whenever you're tuning in, enjoy the hockey, enjoy your team. We love hearing from you. But as always, Evan, we're going to wrap up. Any final thoughts?
Well, in the famous words of Ed Whalen, it's been a ring-a-ding-dong dandy. So
In the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks
on
on the ice.
Stay safe.